aviation industry. So we'll be discussing through these topics: aviation safety and safety culture, best practices and 6 steps to achieve healthy aviation safety culture. We will discuss about some class of error in the aviation safety. And then we have the privilege to conclude with a video by Jennifer Webster of the Health and Safety Laboratory. Safety culture is a lot more than just a sign. Most of the times, when it things related to safety, we always see signages. We also see signages as a safety first, or some will say that for safety, unless it costs money, or for safety, it costs money. But what do you think? Well, as this workshop unfolds, we will get a clearer understanding of what safety culture really involves, why we are convinced to say that it's more than just a sign. What is aviation safety? One we ask. We say that aviation safety is a state of being safe. Of course, it's also the condition of being safe from undergoing or causing hurt, injury, or loss, as defined by the Webster's Dictionary. We also have a term called ALAP, mostly used in the aviation industry. What it means is that the risks or the odds of something causing you grief is as low as reasonably practical. And out of this ALAP, a lot more safety culture principles have been designed out in the aviation industry. But then, of course, I'll be making mention of more of aviation, but most of the things I'll be saying could easily be related to your industries as well. What is this ALAP that we talk about? So we are saying that sometimes the safety risks that might be happening in an organization may be causing an immediate danger. In that case, what do? You stop immediately. Certain times, we say that the safety risk is unacceptable as it currently stands. What do? We say that this is an intolerable region, so you put a stop to it. But safety culture comes in when we say that the safety risk is acceptable. Galaxy A20, it appears you are annotating the screen. Galaxy A20, you are annotating the screen, please. If you could kindly put a stop to it. Thank you. So we say that when the safety risk is acceptable, subject to an adequate mitigation, then we say that it falls within a tolerable region where the risk or the odds of causing a grief is as low as reasonable practical. But then what if safety culture is being practiced and the safety risk is acceptable as it stands? What do? We say that it's an acceptable region. But then, of course, the safety risk is negligible, means that it is a very safe environment. What then is safety culture? Please, just a second. Let me clean the annotation down on the screen. What then is safety culture? We say that it's a culture where safety is treated seriously by the management and all employees. We're also saying that safety culture where safety goals are set and all employees work towards their achievement of these safety policies. We're also saying safety culture is where a system is put in place or where all company employees are trained and encouraged to think and work safely at all times. We also said that safety culture is a system that is put in place to report safety concerns. So anytime you find a situation where you think that is a safety concern, there should be an appropriate means where you can report, and then it could be taken up so that it doesn't cause any danger or harm, as we have seen as a definition to safety. We also say in safety culture, all believe that safety does not have to come at the cost of productivity or profits. Irrespective of profits, safety policies outlined must go through for the benefit of all. We're also saying that safety culture, it is an integral part of a way a company operates. And I'm glad to say that when it comes to the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, that is one thing that we have been doing. Of course, we also say that safety culture, we're talking about a company having a framework to accomplish all the points we have discussed above. And then all these points are put in a management system called the safety management system. Why is safety culture so important now? Is it not true, as said by Engineer Felix, that aviation continues to evolve, but yet to be perfected. And as a result, the probability or risk of being killed in an aircraft accident, we say it varies from 1 in 260,000 in Africa to 1 in 11 million to 45 million, as being a study published in USA Journal in 2012. The difference in the aviation industry is 42 times better when it talks about safety. And you may wonder why. The answer is a safety culture makes all this difference. Now, as you look on the screen, the table shows major takeoffs, about 50 to about a certain year. Now, we have a problem in our industry. And the problem is that we now have a very good safety record. And this can be proven statistically that when you are driving to the airport, it's far more even dangerous than when you are even on flight, because chances of an accident over distance is negligible. We now have an average fatal hull loss, as indicated by the diagram we see on the screen, as 0.02 per million takeoffs and landings. That means that 1 in 5 million takeoff does not even result or expect to land safely. What this means is that takeoffs and landings are increasing. Because takeoff and landings are increasing, the possibility of accidents are also rare. So with doubling the number of aircrafts from 2016, accidents, of course, was expected to double. And the number of accidents will result in an average of 1 per week, unless we make our safety records even better. That we can and we must, but we have to do things differently. So as we've seen, as aircraft increase, as aircraft departures and arrival takeoff increases, the possibility of accidents also increases. And we are saying that if we don't take up safety serious, there will be more accidents or losses. And one of the means that has mitigated this, as you may remember, the world is made of about 70% water. It means most aircraft fly over oceanic regions. And sometimes communication over such regions is very grainy. If you have ever heard tune to AM before, is it clear? Of course, it's not very clear. So we have improved a lot in the use of a high frequency communication. Those of us more inclined to engineering have heard of HF and might be wondering, what is the practical application of HF? Well, in the aviation industry, we use HF a lot in communication over oceanic regions. Why? Because of its low frequency, it has a longer range. And in modern times, because of modern design of HF transmitters, communication over HF is very clear. And even in some cases, like in the case of Ghana, we have it combined with another system called a CPDLC, where aside communication, you can also chat with the pilots. So this has improved safety dramatically. But of course, we must continue to do better. So what does a safety culture look like? It is often said that you know it when you work in it. But then, it is very difficult to measure safety accurately because it is seen by the way things are done around the organization. Is it not true that safety culture is heavily influenced by management? Of course, they call the shots, they release the funds for training and for all these policies to take place. So safety culture is not static. We say that it is a constantly changing approach. But then, what are some characteristics of safety culture? Well, we can talk about its information, its willingness, its accountability, its flexibility, its learning, all geared towards effective safety reporting. Well, when it comes to information, it is true that people are knowledgeable about the human, the technical, the organizational factors that affect the system safety. And engineers and air traffic controllers are well trained in this aspect. But the willingness for people to report their errors and their experiences is sometimes a concern. But when people are willing to do this, it results in effective safety reporting into the safety management system. When people are also accountable, that is, when they are encouraged to report essential safety-related information, near misses, acceptable or unacceptable behavior, it helps for safety mitigation. Again, safety culture is not very static. It's very flexible so that people can adjust when facing unusual circumstances to be able to shift from the established to the direct mode to enable information to flow quickly so that appropriate decision-making level, a proper decision can be made. And when safety concerns are reported, it serves as learning so that people have the competence to draw conclusions from previously occurred occurrences and how it was resolved so that they can learn from it. Other characteristics that we can also talk about is the positive safety culture. That is characterized by a shared commitment to safety responsibility, a positive organization risk profile, the pursuit of continuous improvement, a generative reporting culture, and then, of course, an active hazard identification and risk mitigation activities. Well, a man called Macebeck propounded that a safety culture must have what we call the 3 C's. What did he mean by the 3 C's? He said the first C must be commitment by management. So management through motivation and allocation of resources contribute positively towards the achievement of a proper safety culture in an organization. And when these resources have been allocated, it results to competence because people acquire knowledge and they know how to achieve the organization's safety goals. And when they do that, it results to cognizance in the essence that it results to awareness that it is a never-ending battle. What then are the 6 steps that we can pass on to achieve a healthy safety culture? The first one we want to talk about is what we call the just culture. What is the just culture? Well, is it as seen in the diagram that when you screw up, you are history? Well, a just culture is the foundation of any safety culture. We are saying just culture because we are talking about where honest and at-risk mistakes do not result in discipline. We are also saying that just culture is where an administrative policy spells out reckless behavior. We're also saying that a just culture is where persons can admit to an error without fear of punishment. So yes, you make a mistake, you are not afraid to just say that you are the one who caused the mistake. Why? Because you know that you will not be punished. But then, per the administrative policy that's spelled out clearly on reckless behavior, when it be, a certain process will be activated. So, but what about discipline? If administrative policies are spelling out reckless behavior, what about discipline? Well, what then is the real purpose of discipline? Or where does discipline fit in? Is it not true that some companies, a large cultural shift take place as the blame and fire culture, which is not good, which must be dropped in favor of the fine and fixed culture? So we can accept the main reasons for discipline. So discipline, is it about revenge, where only the mafia with their cement bulls have a harsher discipline policy, as spelled out by Giselle Richardson? Is it the purpose for discipline also to hold a person accountable and make that person an scapegoat? Well, is it a tradition that when you make a mistake, you need to be punished? Now, what is the real purpose of discipline? To ensure that the occurrence does not happen again. So the more the errors will be reported, fixes can be found before they become accidents. Is it not true that a hidden accident, because of fear of discipline, has the potential to become a fatal accident under the wrong? What then is a degree of discipline that is appropriate to commensurate a reckless behavior? Let's ask ourselves this series of questions to see whether it fits into it. Was the act deliberate with a reasonable knowledge of possible consequences? Could this be a reason for discipline? Probably not. What if the person has made similar errors in the past? Probably not. What if they do accept responsibility for their actions? Probably not. What if the person has learned from the experience resulting in the error he created or the safety concern he has created? Well, is this person likely to do this mistake again? So when you're able to go through all these questions, it helps you to be able to apply a degree of discipline that will commensurate based on the just culture. Now, is it not true that anyone can make a mistake? But is it not often also true that only a fool, and this fool can be a company or an individual, that makes the same mistake twice? So without good data analysis, errors and mistakes are quite likely to be repeated later. So the trick is not only to gather the data, but to have a program that will analyze and provide a clear picture of the problem. Then we will be able to develop safety nets to prevent reoccurrence of such problems. Did you take note of the points? What is the degree of discipline? Let's remember the reason for discipline. What is it? To ensure that it does not happen again. Not to find scapegoats, just to ensure that it does not happen again. Now, let's look on this picture and see this aircraft that has crashed into the woods. Let's note that this pilot of this aircraft had just installed a larger engine in the aircraft, which consumed more fuel than the previous engine. He landed at an airport only 10 minutes away from his home, private trip to refuel. The refueler had just closed and was inside watching as the pilot was discovering the pumps were locked. The pilot climbed up and looked into the fuel tank. But this type of aircraft is a tail dragger, and thus the fuel remaining will be at the back of the tank and will be difficult to see the estimated quantity remaining. Interestingly, the refueler was waiting for the pilot to phone him on phone at the pump in order to collect $50 call out charge. The pilot refused to do that. So the pilot took off and crashed 7 minutes later within sight of his air trip. The pilot suffered a lacerated scalp and a broken ankle in the crash. The scalp cut required the pilot to hold his eyebrows up in order to see as he painfully crawled about 1.5 miles through the bush to his home to get help from his wife, whose face had been struck the instrument panel. The result of the aircraft, it was a write-off. The point, a small quantity of fuel was found in each tank. So what resulted after investigation? After investigation, remember we talk about hull accidents. So after investigation, there was no hull insurance. The consequences, the wife was severely injured. The pilot himself was also severely injured. He was off for work for a month. It means loss of money. But you see, in our industry, there was a decision to spend thousands of dollars in order to find this pilot for only $100. And you may wonder why we do this. It is all because of what? Safety culture. We are not looking for excuses to make scapegoats, but we look for solutions so that we can create lessons learned so that we don't repeat such mistakes again. At the end of the investigation, please, what do you think? Will the pilot be guilty? Your answer? He was found not guilty. So that is what just culture is all about. Sincerely admitting to an offense within acceptable policies so that lessons can be learned after investigation. This sends us to the second safety culture practice, which is called the trusting culture. You see, in the trusting culture, it is more of a trust and a cooperation. So we are saying that when the trust is low and cooperation is low, there's always a defense. Everyone is being defensive. And in that case, there is a lose-lose. But when the trust is high and cooperation is low, or cooperation is high and trust is low, there's a compromise. Sometimes there's a win-lose or there's a lose-win. But what do you think? What if trust is high and cooperation is high? There's a synergy because we can all solve the problems and we can all win. So if there's a trust that when I make this report, I will not be punished, don't you think that the staff will be cooperate to report as it is so that appropriate lessons can be drawn? This then sends us to the third safety culture practice called the reporting culture. And this is very good because we must all have this in order to have a true safety culture. I want to encourage those whose microphones are on to kindly mute it. It's kindly interfering, please. Thank you. So what does this reporting culture mean? You see, systems rely upon the willingness of individuals to raise their hand when they see risks or when they are personally involved in the So without reporting, the organization will be limited in its ability to see risks. And so with a reporting culture, we are saying that it provides the means to capture the lessons to be learned arising from human errors, near misses, or free lessons. Is it not true, friends, that you just cannot fix what you don't know? Is it not true? Well, a reporting culture is a collective decision that involves beliefs and attitudes. In a strong safety culture, people believe workplace injuries and illness can be prevented, and leaders drive improvements, and everyone plays a part in building safe and a healthy workplace. Workplace safety attitudes refer to the employee's tendency to respond positively or negatively towards a safety goal, idea, plan, or a procedure to be able to prevent or mitigate an occurrence. So safety attitudes influence employees' choice of actions and response to challenges, incentives, or rewards in the workplace. You may wonder, how does attitude affect safety? Let's remember that attitude affects our behavior. If you have a positive attitude towards safety, the odds are that you will exhibit safe behavior, while a negative attitude will only cause conflicts, stress, or eventually a mishap. It seems as if humans do their best to avoid pain and death. So all of us here are encouraged to take a positive attitude towards safety. In that, we can take personal responsibility for our own safety and that of our co-workers. Even now with the pandemic, are we not taking our own personal responsibility so as not to be infected with the coronavirus and so as not to infect our co-workers? When we have the opportunity, we should pay attention to training. We should also follow every step in every job every time. For instance, a pilot cannot say that I've been flying this aircraft all the time, so I'll just go and just put on the engine and just move. He is always required to go through a routine checklist to be able to know and follow those safety rules before he moves the aircraft. All of us are, in order to positively contribute towards safety, are also required to also at all times have our protective equipment on. And we are also encouraged to give our work full attention. So what other collective decision can we also make? We're talking about the organizational culture, because what pertains in ECG might be different from what pertains in Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, but they are all geared towards safety at our various individual workplaces. So the organizational culture is a collective decision that all of us need to abide. Of course, we also have a national culture we need to abide by it. And if Engineer Hector Boy will also admit, we also have a professional culture or ethics that guides all of us as professionals that we need to also follow. A reporting culture, we say that it's still a collective decision. Because if personnel avoid reporting for fear of punishment, management does not gain important safety information. So fear is a no-no. It must be discouraged. An organization reporting culture can be characterized into three areas. They're either pathological, bureaucratic, or generative. If the organizational reporting culture is pathological, it means that they will always ignore or hide the information. Will that be a good culture? I guess not. If the organizational reporting culture is bureaucratic, it means that they restrain or barricade the information. Would that be good? Probably not. But when the organizational reporting culture is generative, we are saying that objective analysis and sharing of information is abundant. Will that be a good organizational reporting culture? I guess yes. Let's look at the example of BOEINE. BOEINE maintenance error decision aid. So many of the current error investigation processes that they go through includes when an event occurs, investigation reveals the event caused by the maintenance error, they determine who made the error, and then they administer discipline. Please, friend, think about it. Does this conform to the safety culture principles that we have discussed a few minutes back? I guess not. What about the updated process? What does it include? Now take notes. Now, the maintenance error decision aid updated process, the same when an event occurs, same level 2, an investigation reveals the event caused by the maintenance error. 3, they determine who made the error. Now, instead of administering discipline, see what they do next. They will interview responsible personnel, find contributing factors, get ideas for processing improvements, follow up to obtain additional contributing factors and information, add to maintenance error database, make process improvements based on contributing factors, and based on these events, and based on the analysis of the multiple events, they will finally provide feedback to all employees affected by the process improvements. Friends, so imagine you are following through this process and you make an error. Would you be fearful to report? I guess not. Again, reporting culture, we still say that it is a collective decision because it seeks improvements. It diligently remains aware of hazards and it utilizes the symptoms and the tools for continuous reporting, analysis, mitigation, and monitoring. Now, next, we're going to see some pictorial examples of a very good reporting culture. First, we look at the report from an aircraft maintenance engineer's logbook. He found an error. Did he hide it? No. He confidently reported it so that the investigator, corrections made, analysis, they investigate all personnel involved, and then the process will be entered into the safety management systems for future reference. Same way, at the air traffic control, sometimes near misses of aircrafts. Are these personnel afraid to report? I guess not. They will confidently. So as you will see in the picture, they are looking on the screen, and that screen, they see the airspace of a particular country, say Ghana. So aircraft are seen as dots on this screen that are moving at some vertical heights. So they have to separate them vertically. And sometimes the aircraft gets so close, dangerously close. And when it does that, it means it's a safety concern. Will they hide it? No, they wouldn't. Investigation will be made, and then appropriate notes will be made for future understanding. What about pilots? Sometimes there are surface conditions that are not too conducive. Will the pilot say that, oh, for me, I'm so experienced, so I've been able to manage, so I won't report it? I guess not. When they report, it helps others as well to be able to also learn from it so that they might not find themselves in the same situation. What about reports of physical obstacles to air navigation? Now, what you are seeing on the screen is a typical air route. So you may wonder, if there are physical roads that we drive on, would you have roads out there in the sky? The answer, big yes. We have logical roads. And these logical roads are defined by equipment that have been installed on the ground. If they are navigation, giving directions through one place to the other for aircraft to be able to navigate their way to their destination. And if they are surveillance equipment, to be able to see the targets, the height, the speed, the identification of the aircraft as they move up there. And then, of course, if they are communication equipment, to be able for the controller to be able to talk to the pilots, whether fly on land or flying overseas. So sometimes on an air route, people build or do things that endanger. So the law says that if you want to build to a certain height, you must report. Some don't. But then, of course, there is a safety department that are responsible for that. So I don't want to talk more about that. Of course, also, the report of incompatibility development near approach of the airport is also a safety concern. And I remember very well that I think somewhere in 2013, 2014, when the very high frequency omnidirectional radio range new one was to be installed, somewhere beyond the East Legon Under Bridge, there were some developments that were affecting the sighting criteria of this critical equipment. So the result is that the structures around were pulled down because once it affects the sighting criteria, the signals will not work well and safety up there in the skies will be at risk. But you see, we don't need to sweat over the small stuff, because if we do, we will, so if we don't sweat over the small stuff and report it, we will avoid having to sweat over bigger stuffs, because little drops of water makes a mighty ocean. So once little faults are happening and you are reporting, it will not result in bigger stuffs. And reporting every minor is what we call the safety management system practice. And that is what the safety management system is all about. Any error that is reported is fed into this system, investigation is made, and then all those appropriate personnel are updated, trained, so they don't make such mistakes again. The small stuff has the potential to become a big stuff. And this brings us to an end of the third safety culture practice, the reporting culture. Now let's go to the fourth, the learning culture. What is the learning culture all about? A good learning organization can prioritize risks that it sees, and it will make intelligent decisions about where to spend their limited resources. So a learning culture will enable us to make the reports with their free lessons and through risk management to be able to lower the hazards that threaten the safety of the organization. A learning culture will enable us to analyze what we weren't even aware of before, so that we are now fully aware to be able to fix the problem or hazard before it causes an accident. In that case, it helps us to be able to take off from a reactive level to a proactive level. We don't wait for accident to happen before we take action, but we are always doing corrective maintenance so that we increase our level of safety. In a learning culture, human factors that includes training are provided. And it's not just a one-off. It is an ongoing thing. When incident data are kept and analyzed to find trends and develop safety nets. So if all the time a particular safety concern is being arises, it draws attention that the personnel in there needs to have a refresher training so that analysis can be made, trends can be developed, so that appropriate safety mitigation nets can be developed to mitigate such occurrences. When major changes are carried out or when the system is not sufficiently safe, learning must be provided. And in the learning culture, feedback is provided as a means of learning from all incidents. So when something happens and an investigation is made, the report is not kept under the desk of the big boss. The feedback is provided so that all can learn from it. This takes us to the fifth culture, called the informed culture. What is the informed culture? It is a process where everyone knows the organization's true safety commitments. To be able to achieve that, a mission statement is clearly posted so that everyone at all times can see this mission statement. So in the case of this picture, in the background, you see the mission statement that has been posted. And it talks about safety. If you see the circle, it talks about safety. So all of them, as you may have seen, are poised with their laughter on their faces. They are not afraid to make errors, or they are not afraid to report occurrences. But then, safety culture, we say that aside the mission statement, a safety policy is also posted. And it's not posted at the corner. It is posted visibly so that at all the time can be able to see it, so that even if you are feeling lazy to read all at a go, at least as you go walk in and walk out, you are able to read at least a line, so that at least in a week or two, you're able to have absorbed all the points on it, so that it's always refreshing in your mind. Now, an example of a safety policy by QANTAS Airline, it's a lot, but this safety policy is not just for a certain group. The QANTAS safety policy spells out the management responsibility as well as the employer's responsibility. It in effect says that we are all responsible. It is everyone's job, and this may call for a culture change. It is a very bit as important as a company mission statement. So when the mission statement says that this is why we exist, that is to provide the customer the best possible service. Without a customer, there is no profit. And of course, the company does not exist. But without safety, the company will not even exist for long either. Thus, a safety policy should be just as large and promoted just as much as the mission statement. So now in this safety policy, there is a policy for management, a policy for managers and supervisors, a policy for managers and supervisors again, a policy separate for supervisors only, again for supervisors again, and then the employees again, and then for everyone. So this safety policy is not saying that, oh, it is only the employee who must apply safety. No, from top management down to the ground floor, everybody takes safety seriously because the safety policy spells out everyone's role clearly. And this is an excellent example of a safety policy and a state policy by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. Their writings are small, but the safety policy statements and objectives of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority says that safety is the first priority in all our activities. We are committed to implementing, developing, and improving strategies, management systems, and processes to ensure that all our activities uphold the highest level of safety performance and meet national and international standards. Our vision is to achieve the highest degree of safety through the adoption of safety management systems. Our mission, to foster the development of structured aviation business plans that hold safety as an integral core value. No wonder with these policies, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority had the highest index in 2019 in Africa, scored the highest point in safety. Of course, the state safety policy is also stated. So if you have ever visited the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, from ground to the 7th floor, each floor you find one of these big pull-up banners displays. And the one on the right, the state safety policy and other safety policies, if you have been to the Ghana Civil Aviation Training Academy, you also find it also on each floor. I found it interesting because, sometimes, we don't like reading, but with this, at least you read a little. You assimilate, read another, assimilate, and in no time, you may get familiar with all the things in there. Again, apart from the mission statement that is posted and the safety policy that is also posted, there is also an administrative policy that is also known by all. And then there is also the long-term safety goals that is also known by all, and all work towards them. So it is not just about knowing it, it is about how the employers, together with management, are harnessed or poised towards working together to achieve this. And then there's also an optional core value statement that may also be posted. This brings us to our final safety culture practice called the flexible culture. So in a flexible culture, we are saying that when necessary changes are made in order to improve safety. So you don't say that your safety policy is static. What you have designed is just it. No improvement. No. When need be and investigations are made, updates need to be made to it flexibly to improve the safety. Where the organization is
I'm supposed to be on leave. You're sending me this already. Anyway.
Hello, please kindly mute your mic.
All are encouraged to mute your microphone because you are interfering, please. So again, we are saying that the organization in the flexible culture is constantly looking for better ways to work safer. The organization is always encouraging the status quo, not considered as an option in the quest to lower errors. When errors occurs, instantly they will want to rise and look for solutions to it. So in a flexible culture again, where there is a chronic unease that despite all efforts, human error will still occur. So, despite all the technological advancements, human errors are something that you cannot, go away with. They will occur, but a flexible culture accommodates and recognizes human errors. But that is not to say that all human errors are indeliberate errors. In a flexible culture, we are also talking about where an emergency response plan is in place so that in an event of an error occurring, a quick response is provided to mitigate that safety concern. By far, we have discussed all the 6 points that we can go through to be able to achieve effective safety culture. And if you do that, you now have a safety culture that is ALAP as low as reasonable practical, where it falls within a region where it gives room for some investigation to be carried out, where no one is blamed, where there's a just culture, trusting culture, reporting culture, learning culture, informed culture, as well as a flexible culture. So what do you think of this class of error? I forgot to talk about this picture in our initial slide. So if you permit me to quickly, in our initial slide, I forgot to talk about it. Now, you see this aircraft, when they were doing maintenance, they forgot this touch in the landing gears, and then the aircraft took off. Now, after the aircraft took off, one of the maintenance engineers probably is asking, which of you techies stole my flashlight? But then, of course, what do you think is going to happen to this landing gear, possibly? Will the person who left this torch be honest enough to report if he remembers before this aircraft even touches down? What will be the risks? And will you classify it as reckless? Well, at this point, let's turn our attention again to the screen and listen to a video by Jennifer Webster of
Hello, my name's Jen Webster and I'm a chartered psychologist here at the Health and Safety Laboratory. And part of my job is to help organisations understand and improve their safety culture using our Ascent model. And one of the questions I'm frequently asked is, what is safety culture? So I thought I'd give you a brief explanation about what it is, why it's important, and how you can measure your safety culture. The term safety culture was first used in an initial report published by the International Atomic Energy Agency way back in 1986, which identified the organisational and managerial failures that contributed to the Chernobyl disaster. And in 1993, HSC's Advisory Committee on the Safety of Nuclear Installations produced their definition of safety culture. They said that safety culture of an organisation is the product of individual and group values. Hello, my name's Jen Webster and I'm a chartered psychologist here at the Health and Safety Laboratory. And part of my job is to help organisations understand and improve their safety culture using our Ascent model. And one of the questions I'm frequently asked is, what is safety culture? So I thought I'd give you a brief explanation about what it is, why it's important, and how you can measure your safety culture. The term safety culture was first used in an initial report published by the International Atomic Energy Agency way back in 1986, which identified the organisational and managerial failures that contributed to the Chernobyl disaster. And in 1993, HSC's Advisory Committee on the Safety of Nuclear Installations produced their definition of safety culture. They said that safety culture of an organisation is the product of individual and group values, attitudes, perceptions, competencies, and patterns of behaviour that determine the commitment to and the style and proficiency of an organisation's health and safety management. Some have described safety culture as an organisation's personality. Another way of thinking about safety culture is the way things are done around here. Now, often you'll see alongside safety culture the term safety climate also being used, and it's not unusual for them to be used interchangeably, even by the experts. And to illustrate the differences between the two, I'd like to use the iceberg metaphor, what you see and what you don't see. Safety climate relates to the perceptions held across the workforce at a given moment in time about the way things are done around here. It's measurable. Safety culture is the underlying shared values, beliefs and habitual working practices that influence health and safety performance, and these are not always apparent. In other words, like this iceberg, the scale and extent of any issues relating to your safety culture may not be in your line of sight. So, why should you measure safety climate? Well, looking back at 30 years of safety climate research, Dov Zohar describes safety climate as a robust leading indicator of health and safety performance. And we know that organisations with a successful health and safety record use an appropriate mix of both leading and lagging indicators. As you can see on the left-hand side, safety climate consists of a number of antecedents. These are the elements that contribute towards a strong safety culture. By understanding the safety climate in your organisation, you can build on your strengths, focus on areas for improvement, and in doing so, you will find you have less injuries and near misses, and a workforce that is both competent, motivated, and engaged to work safely. So I've explained what safety culture is and why you should measure it, but where should you start? It's important to have a plan, and we recommend you use HSL's ascent model to guide you through the change that you want to make, and you do this through a series of manageable steps. First, build your foundation for what you want to achieve and get the support of key stakeholders in your organisation. Analyse your current safety culture by using HSL's Safety Climate tool to give you a baseline that will act as your anchor moving forward. Focus on your results. Use the survey data to engage and involve the workforce in decisions about what needs to change, and then form an action plan. If you follow the model, you'll be able to make evidence-based decisions to develop your action plan. And finally, you should evaluate how you're doing, as it's important to keep the momentum going as part of your overall plan for continuous improvement. If you'd like to find out more about safety culture or HSL's ascent model, join us on one of our First Steps webinars and ask for our free white papers by contacting product support at hsl.gsi.gov.uk.
Well, so this is where we are privileged to bring an end to our discussions. And remember that at Zoom Airlines, our passengers are always right. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this message, and thank you all for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Isaac Boachi. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking part in this second in the series IEEE Ghana session workshop. Yes, safety is the way to go, no matter where we are. We have learned about the safety cultures, the just culture, trusting culture, reporting culture, and there's pathological reporting, bureaucratic reporting, and generative. Learning culture, informed culture, and a flexible culture. Please, you may raise your hand if you have any question for clarification, suggestion, or whatever. Yes, Engineer George, Dr. George Dufo, you may proceed. Yeah, Dr. Dufo, you can proceed.
Thank you. I think my mic was off. I want to congratulate Engineer Boachi for that excellent presentation. I think it was quite wonderful presentation. I realized that listening to him, he touched on the perspectives are two. One has to do with the aviation industry, and then the one is a generic. Now, as a passenger on board of, let's say, the aircraft, I want to know what is expected of me in terms of safety. If you can just maybe clarify that aspect for us. Thank you.
Yeah, Engineer Isaac, please, your take on the issue.
So as passengers on board an aircraft, most of the time before takeoffs, you are expected that if you have any electronic appliance with you, you either put it on air safe mode or you put it off. So although reasons are usually not provided to you, because it causes safety concerns, that is why such announcements are made. And so when they are made, please, you have to do well to comply with this directive so that you put your phone in either air mode or off so that it doesn't affect safety. But then, of course, the way you also put your things overhead or under can also cause a safety injury to some passengers. So sometimes we also need to follow through the directions by the air hostess in terms of how we're supposed to organize our things in the aircraft.
Thank you. I think I'm okay.
Yeah, please. Any more question, suggestion, clarification? Then it means that Engineer Azzi has actually dealt with the subject, that we've all understood what safety means. Hello. Yeah, Dr. Adufu, yeah, please, you may go ahead.
Hello, please, this is Engineer Miriam.
Yeah, Engineer Miriam, yeah, you may go ahead.
Yes, I want to thank Engineer Boachi for such a great presentation. It was so powerful. And I was happy he was able to cover all up. Now we know how to board a plane. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Engineer Boachi, a question for you from one of the participants. Thank you for the presentation. From a leadership development standpoint, what best practices or training should we be using to develop leaders with the safety culture mindset you noted today?
Thank you very much. Daisy, is it Daisy Fally? Thank you very much for your question. So if you took notes of the presentation, you may have realized that the first foundation of safety culture, the just culture, which is the foundation of safety culture, is what we are all really encouraged, because it's a building block. You don't jump to the middle and say you are doing safety culture. When you're able to do step 1, it makes it easier to do step 2. It makes it easier to do step 3. It makes it easier to do step 4, then 5, then 6. So I will encourage that if it is not already existent in an organization, I will humbly suggest that you start with a just culture. A just culture where it is hugely practiced in the aviation industry, where an employee is not afraid to report of an error he has made. Because in some cases, when he makes a little error, he knows that when he reports of it, you will either be fired, victimized, made an scapegoat. But a just culture where he is confident to report the error. Because think about it. Sometimes if he's confident to tell that, oh, I was doing A, B, C, and it resulted into C, then he has someone who has better understanding of the system to be able to backtrack on what the person was doing, to be able to solve it. So imagine the person is quiet because of fear of victimization and he doesn't voice out. Then you may take a whole day to even identify a fuse that is even blown. So a just culture, that is the foundation. It was really, really encouraged. So if it's not already existing, I will humbly encourage that. From a management point of view, you start with a just culture where everybody has a confidence, where there is a win-win situation, there's a synergy. Trust is high, cooperation is high between management and stuff, so that at all points, when mistakes are made, people are not afraid to voice out, lessons are learned, corrections are made, and everybody's updated so that such mistakes don't happen again.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Isaac. Please, any more questions?
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Joseph Esando. Yeah, please, you may go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very nice, very impressive presentation. Students ask someone, so what do I have to do with, have I got to do with some aviation, though I've been traveling a lot. But like he said, the just culture. Well, so there's something new, if I really, that is really coming to force in a lot of institutions. We call it ESG, and environment, social, and governance. Very, very key. We always talk about the environmental impact assessment, where we look at the host, the impact on the citizenry, the area, location, but then also the ESG that includes or that involves just culture, particularly the investor, the company, the governance, the I would say the companies and all that. Very, very important. So thanks so much for the presentation. I guess it's a very excellent one. Let the last out of it. So I see there's not only applicable to the aviation industry, but also the things we do, the governance, and so the particular those of us in the power and energy sector, but with power generation, all that it's all applicable. Thank you, God, Isaac. You've done very well. Thank you very much.
And to quickly add to what Dr. Esando said, I remember last week I had a call from one engineer from Gridco. Is it VRA or Gridco? And he was talking about the emission of some gases in the atmosphere sometimes by their system. So he wanted to find out from me what needs to be done. I actually directed him to the our safety regulations department, and I am glad to say that the former director of safety regulations, who is now the deputy director general technical of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, is with us here. And after I talk, I'll be happy if you can give him the opportunity to also share a word, because he's the expert when it comes to safety. So after I spoke with the guy, he contacted the contact I gave him, and he came back thanking me. And the guy at the safety regulation was also so thankful, because imagine that there's an aircraft flowing, and all of a sudden there are some gaseous substances emitted in the atmosphere that possibly might blind the pilot. What next? Was it a situation where out of no communication, and then because that gas may probably have been emitted on an air route and it blinds the pilot, and then the pilot will make a complaint, and now we'll be making ways as to what to do? No. Now that he knows, anytime they will do such, our safety regulation is informed, possibly geolocation is tagged, so that on the day that will be done, possibly we are alerted so that aircraft can be diverted from that route so that safety concerns are not put at risk. Mr. Daniel Alka, please, you can add up, please.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Boachi. I'll first of all congratulate you for your beautiful presentation. That was very nice. Yes, you spoke at length about the safety culture. But virtually you said it all. And to the last question that was asked, or what you were talking about concerning the atmosphere, you can see that from our mission statement, that is the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. It says that we regulate civil aviation and provide safe and secure air navigation services in a professional and environmentally responsible manner. So in all that we do, we consider that of the environment as well. So your friend from
or your inquirer from either VNRA or GRICO did the right thing. And we have a safety data also for the environment. We have an environmental officer who coordinates all environmental activities in terms of aviation. He has data on fuel upload by all the airlines and fuel burns in order to know how much harm is being caused in the environment. And as well, by having that data, we are also able to mitigate any harm that the environment might cause. If you look at the modern ways of aviation, formerly, there are certain waypoints that the aircraft must fly through. But now we have PBN procedures, that's performance-based navigation. Initially, they were called IFLEX routes, where the pilot can choose a more direct distance. And by this way, the aircraft time or duration for the flight reduces, and in that way also less fuel is burnt. So we are all helping and contributing to making the earth a greener place to live for the benefit of mankind and Mother Earth. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Director General, Mr. Daniel Aqua. Thank you very much for the additional information provided to this presentation. Please, any more questions or clarification or suggestion? Yeah, no lady has spoken. Please, the lady engineer.
So can I just say something?
Yes, please. You are welcome.
Yeah, Engineer Wache, that's really an insightful presentation. Thank you very much. You know, because we've been doing the marine safety stuff, this has been an insightful one for me. And I would love our students to sort of have this feel of the aviation safety stuff you have given us today. Congratulations. It's been a great, presentation. More grace to your elbows. And thank you to your boss also.
Thank you. So let me quickly say that for the benefit of our friends here, I have sent the file. So on your Zoom, you can get the file, a copy of the presentation on your files. So please look out for it and download before we exit from this Zoom. Over to the chairman.
Yeah, so if there's no more question, I'll call on the chairman of IEEE Ghana session to give us a closing remark of what has taken place. And
okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Felix, Engineer Felix Apaglo. I think that is very insightful evening for listening to Engineer Boachi. And a little bit on IEEE. IEEE, like we all know, is an international institution that is dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. Now, once you join the IEEE, there are a number of benefits you get. One has to do with the access to the IEEE database, which is the digital library, especially those of you interested in research. The database hosts millions of technical journals that you can rely upon, especially if you're into research. And then the membership is drawn for more than, I think currently is made up of more than 600 and something thousand members across the globe. And therefore, we will encourage everyone, especially if you're an engineer, you want to have the international flavor to your profile, you join the IEEE, where we continuously improve knowledge for the benefits of Mother Ghana. So I think I'll thank you all for you. I'll thank all of you for coming, especially my special thanks go to Engineer Boachi, who has given us a lot of information in relation to the aviation industry. So thank you. Back to Felix. So Felix, you take over from me. Felix, can you hear me?
All right.
Yes, I can hear. Yeah. So thank you very much, Engineer Boachi, and we thank everybody who has taken time off to to be part of this IEEE program. Thank you very much. So bye.
Bye. Thank you all for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
NS Jemfi and Victor at the whole.
Engineer Boachi.
Hey, Azindo, how are you?
Yes, sir. Was a good job done. And I like your smoothie as well.
I bought it from your hometown. Victor Adahori, is it? Oh, Enanga, I saw your question, but I don't know whether you I can still answer you, or I have sent my number to you if you want to call so that we talk.
Oh, hi. I saw it.
That's all right. Do you want me to answer now?
Oh, sure. Most definitely.
All right.
I mean, it's good to see that.
All right. So the question you asked was, Engineer Boachi, your recommendations on safety culture are aligned with research on psychological safety and building a culture of inquiry that applies across the entire aviation, aerospace, and defense industries. This safety culture is critical to protect once you have it. Do you have examples when individuals refuse to adopt this positive culture, and how did you handle it? That was your question. I wish my brother NS Jemfi is here. Is NS Jemfi here? Oh, he's gone. All right. So there are a lot of examples of such in our database. As rightly said by my boss, we already have a working safety management system, and you have the safety manager. And a lot of this has been happening. You remember the pictures I showed? The pictures I showed concerning an aircraft maintenance engineers in their logbooks, some errors they make, as well as the pictures I showed at the air traffic control center. It will interest you to know that every single communication, whether through the VHF, the HF, the IDD, or the PABX at the air traffic controllers end is recorded. Every single action initiated by them on their screen is also recorded. Are we doing that to monitor what they are doing? Not necessarily. But yes, human failures you cannot ignore. But sometimes when it does, it gives us opportunity when a report is made about near misses. Then we are able to investigate. And most of the time, the essence of the investigation is not to look out for mistakes. It's to look out for what really happened. Sometimes it may not be the fault of the air traffic controller. It may be the fault of the pilot. Sometimes it may not be the fault of the pilot. It may be the fault of the controller. But then there are administrative policies that are well spelled. Of course, there are questions that should be asked when such errors occurs. So when these questions are asked and it meets the requirements for such an investigation, the result is that All those concerned in those areas are updated, they are trained, and they move on. But of course, there are some mistakes. Sometimes they are deliberate. You see, safety culture, we are not talking about deliberate mistakes that that when you do this, it's going to cause harm. That is why we talked about safety initially. When you know that what you are about to do will cause a safety harm and you deliberately do it, I don't think safety culture has a place of protection for you. But times where it may have been deliberate, but investigation may reveal that it's ignorance. Well, the investigation team are well trained to be able to, and resourceful to be able to make such identification and be able to provide such lessons learned. So yes, we have a lot of them in our safety database. And I wish my boss, Daniel Akwa, would be able to also add up to this voice, because he may know more than I do in these areas.
Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the response anyway?
No, most definitely. It was twofold. It was one where there's some stuff along the lines of malicious intent. And then the other piece of that was more so along the lines, there are people where you're trying to move towards a positive culture, that just culture, and they prefer to stay in the latter, where they prefer to have the power to, I would say, not operate in this more collaborative environment. And so you're in that weird place of, okay, I'm trying to train you to move to a new culture, and they're not going there. So you have to, some organizations remove those people, some organizations do intense training and so forth. And so I was also wondering, how have you run into that, and how you also handled that as well?
Okay, so I get you now. So for instance, at my organization, because safety is of a higher priority to us, when we employ new ones, we actually do a security profiling of them, go through security training before they are even issued security ID cards, because now the airport environment is a security area. And once that is done, during your training, in the case of the engineers who were trained 6 months in class before they were brought to the fold to join the other colleagues, they would have been trained through the organizational culture. And out of the organizational culture that they will be trained, their attention will also be drawn to the fact to remain professional. And then, of course, safety culture is also introduced to them or to all new employers at a very initial stage. So it helps us for such employers to be able to adapt as we go along. We have not had a lot of issues of people who tend to not to be security conscious. You want to train them, they don't want to. We have not had much of those problems. Or I could say we have not experienced such problems. But then, of course, human beings are human beings. You could train, and of course, the way you assimilate what you are helping is different from person to person. But we have generally not experienced much of that. We do this training from the very moment you are employed, and we are very serious about safety.
Thank you.
Thank you. William Ajari, welcome.